Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Many teenagers feel impervious. For example, they may feel they can smoke or vape or even drive under the influence, and they feel like it's unlikely to hurt them. Risk taking seems almost hardwired, maybe especially among boys. But to the extent it can be mitigated, here are some possible approaches for parents. As usual, there are no guarantees. Electrons may behave predictably, but people, especially teenagers and young adults, don't. First, you might, as a parent, try setting fairly strict limits. To individuate from their parents, teens tend to rebel. Parents, with their kids, in collaboration, should establish solid but fair rules. And when the teen breaks one, the parent should express, if at all possible, express disappointment rather than punish. That is more likely to inculcate intrinsic rather than extrinsic motivation. With the latter, that is, with extrinsic motivation, in other words, just fear of punishment, when the child's away from the parent's watchful eye, they're more likely to break more rules. By setting relatively firm limits, your teen may be more likely to satisfy that need to rebel with smaller, less dangerous actions. For example, by not allowing soda, not allowing soda or junk food in the house, your teen may feel that he or she is rebelling merely by having a soda and chips, sneaking that at a party or whatever. Next, you might choose to discuss, or even, as I'll try to explain, not discuss substance abuse. There are good reasons to discuss it. You can make your position clear. Most kids want to please their parents. You can facilitate a discussion of it, and that way your child, when away from the in-the-moment pressures of peer pressure, can develop their own position on substance use. You can show your child articles that summarize the research from top universities pointing to the dangers. For example, there's an article, you can Google it, called Weed It and Weep. And having such a conversation, if it's done well, will open lines of communication. So when there's a problem, like, for example, your child is under the influence at a party, he or she can feel okay about calling you to pick them up. Well, what if you're a substance abuser yourself? And let's say you're not ready to stop, but you still probably need to address this with your child. Again, no guarantees that it would help, but I'd probably start the conversation with something like, I'm worried about you and weed. And you'd be right in saying, well, Dad, you do it, why can't I? Well, part of the reason is that we now know that it's very damaging to the teen's still developing brain. And I didn't know that when I started smoking. But the main reason I'd love it if you would stop is that just because I'm doing something bad and I'm kind of addicted, which is making it hard for me to stop, doesn't mean I don't want a better life for you, my dear child. I'm not the kind of parent who's going to punish you for doing it or monitor you like a hawk. I'll just say that I deeply hope that you won't do drugs. And to reduce the temptation, I hope you'll hang out with kids who know that there are many other ways to have a good time. I'd welcome their coming over to hang out with you here, if you like. Am I wasting my words here? What do you think? Then I would try to listen well, jointly problem solve, respectfully reiterating my concerns if I needed to, and end with a hug. Advocated far less often is not talking with your child about substance abuse, but a case can be made for that. You see, talking about it tends to result in the parents saying no, just say no, or blaming the child for past dalliances and so on. That can exacerbate the teen's desire to rebel. At minimum, that makes the issue more top of mind for the child, making them more likely to use drugs in the future. I know of some adults whose parents never discuss drugs or alcohol with their teen, and in retrospect, those adults feel that if their parents had discussed it with them, it would have actually become more of a part of their consciousness, and therefore they'd been more tempted. Another thing a parent might do is to encourage good friends. Especially in the teenage years, peers may have a greater influence on behavior than parents do. So, encouraging your kid to have friends who are not undue risk takers can be valuable. I remember when my parents kicked a ne'er-do-well friend of mine out of the house and told me I should never see him again. I didn't stop immediately, I guess because I would have felt too controlled by my parents, but I did taper until I no longer saw him. Next, help ensure that your child has a reason to want to not endanger his or her health. If a teen does poorly in school and has few friends, that kid may feel they've got little to lose by hurting their lives, by doing drugs, getting pregnant as a teen or whatever. Of course, you can't turn an inveterate struggler into a most likely to succeed, but you can facilitate their having realistic hope for a decent life. Here are a few things you might do. Meet with the school guidance counselor to have your child placed in classes in which he or she has a chance to do well. Or, especially if your kid is academically weak, facilitate job shadowing, volunteering, and maybe even getting paid work in one or more areas of the kid's strength. For example, a non-academic child might do well trying out hands-on careers, maybe a classic one like electrician or a next-generation one like robot technician. The important thing is for you to make it happen. Teenagers, especially at-risk ones, are unlikely to have sufficient initiative to set that up themselves. So ask your friends and relatives if your kid could visit or volunteer after school or during vacation. And finally, if your child has few friends and maybe is even socially ostracized, you can help. I was like that, and I only wish my parents had advised me to ask kids what I was doing wrong. I might have learned earlier, for example, that my talking about my accomplishments, which I thought was okay because my parents always bragged about me to their friends, was disliked by kids. And as I mentioned earlier, ask your child to invite to your home kids who bring out the best in him or her. Welcome such kids, making them feel at home. Maybe take such teens along on family outings. That's something my wife and I did with our daughter. We tried to strike the balance between welcoming such kids to our home, simply saying we're glad to see them, maybe offering a snack, but also staying out of their way. Kids want privacy, not their parents inveigling themselves. Few things are more painful for a parent than seeing their beloved child sink slowly, or alas, per the recent reports on vaping, sink quickly. In any event, I thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko. I welcome your thumbs up, and if needed, a thumbs down, your comment. You're hitting the share button and sharing your social media, or subscribing to my channel. And in any event, thanks again for watching. I'm Marty Nemko.